Welcome back to our next question and answer session with Father Stephen. Here's the next question. Hi, Father Stephen. There have been many issues increasingly popping up during this health pandemic than the years where there was no health pandemic. Websites like LifeSite News often ask their viewers to send a letter for different issues, which is great that they got those addresses and emails. Why should the general public take some time to write a respectable letter to MPs or the Cardinal, etc.? Thanks, Father. I love Jesus Christ. Glad you love Jesus Christ. Something we should all do. So, why should the general public write respectable letters or sign petitions to MPs, members of Parliament, or to the Cardinal regarding various issues? So, basically, the simple answer is because your voice is important. You have a greater influence than you realize. So the more people that speak out against injustice, the better, and the greater will be the impact. But every person has to make the effort to do that. Someone had left a comment about why we should participate in Life Chain. Kind of similar question. So in other words, their point was, well, so few people come out to participate in Life Chain. Many priests don't preach on it or promote it or don't even talk about pro-life issues. So what's the point? It seems like a losing cause. No, it's not a losing cause. So we have to remember that Christ is on our side, and so it's never a losing cause. There's a statement by Edmund Burke, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. We are called to be good men and women, to oppose evil, because if we don't do anything, evil will flourish. We don't want that to happen. So part of the problem is that not enough people are fighting against evil. Well, yes, we're all busy, we have things to do, but sometimes we're just too focused on our own selfish pursuits and we don't do enough for the common good or the good of people in society. So we are called to keep fighting for the truth no matter what, because as I mentioned, we have Christ on our side. And it's not just for moral issues. I mean, imagine if we were fighting for our faith, for the freedom to be able to be Catholic. Imagine if you were severely persecuted, threatened with torture or even martyrdom if you refuse to renounce your Catholic faith. So we have to keep fighting for the truth. And it's not just for our own salvation, but for the good of others, for the salvation of others. So we must never surrender. Regarding the Life Chain, it's interesting that more than one woman who had been pregnant and was driving by during the Life Chain decided to keep their child, which they were planning to abort, because of the witness of the people out in the Life Chain. And two of these women, I mean, who knows how many there were, but two of these women were so grateful to have their child, so happy to have their child, that they actually made the effort and went to the effort to invest in trying to find out who the organizers of the Life Chain are, to personally thank them for their witness, because that's what caused them to keep their child, and now they're just so happy that they have their child. So our witness does have an impact. And the more people that we have out there, the better. Because if it's just a few people, people are going to think, oh, these people are just fanatics. They don't know what they're talking about. If we have 100 people out there, it's a much greater witness than just a few. Now, here's an analogy that perhaps might help you to understand. Imagine a huge dam with a large body of water on one side, and often with dams they allow a little bit of water through, but let's just say with this dam they want to prevent all the water from flowing through. But there's someone on the other side adding one drop of water to this body of water at a time, and eventually the level of water rises, and eventually it's going to overflow the dam. So this is the reality that we're dealing with. So each one of us is like a drop of water, and each drop of water makes a difference. In fact, you might be the last drop of water. Eventually it will just take one drop to cause the dam to overflow. And once it starts to overflow, a large amount of water will go over at once, partially because the molecules, the water molecules kind of stick together and they pull. There's, what's that force that pulls it over? Anyways, you know what I'm talking about. So yes, we do need to do our part. So we need to oppose evils. We need to look for opportunities to do that. LifeSite News, yes, often they have these online petitions, sample letters, but they also encourage you to write your own letters. So writing your own letter, sometimes it has greater weight because they take it more seriously than just those standard sample letters that you just put your signature to. But whatever you do, even if it's just a little bit, it's ideally making a difference. If there were more people doing it, it would make more of a difference. So just because there's not enough people doing it, does that mean we should all stop doing it? No. We need to encourage more people to do it. So the more there are, the better, whether it's the life chain or signing a petition or writing a letter. And yes, we are our brother's keepers. So sometimes the problem is that people just think that, they can't do anything. Their efforts are useless, and they're so busy with their own lives, so why should they care? But they should, because it's going to affect so many people, some of these things that are wrong or evil in society. So if we don't do our part, evil is just going to spread, and evil is going to flourish. And in reality, neglecting to do what we can when we could and should is really a sin of omission, and it may even be a serious sin of omission. And that's something to consider, because the reality is, yes, we are our brother's keeper. What we do or fail to do is going to affect everyone around us. During World War II in Germany, some people of the general populace just turned a blind eye to the atrocities that were being committed against the Jews. And it wasn't just the Jews, gypsies, people who were handicapped. All of them were taken to the gas chambers and the concentration camps, including Christians. So Christians were rounded up also. Don't forget, Maximilian Kolbe was one of those in the Nazi concentration camps. So some of these people knew the full truth of what was going on, but they just turned a blind eye. They didn't make any effort to oppose these horrible, horrible things that were happening in society. Maybe they felt they were alone. Maybe they felt they couldn't do anything. But if they really made the effort, they probably could have done something. Some of these people in the general population perhaps didn't know what was really going on. But even that, you can argue that they probably had a sense of what was going on. So I remember reading an account of a family that lived right next to the railway tracks, and these freight trains full of, prisoners, mostly Jews. When they went by, the people would be screaming for help, and that the people in the house just turned up the volume on their radios or television or whatever they had at that time, so they wouldn't hear the screams of the people. In other words, they knew what was going on. They knew that people were being burned. There was a certain smell in the air, and all these things. So they had rumors of these things, but they didn't want to believe it. They preferred to just go on with their lives, to be only concerned about themselves, not to be concerned about their brothers who might be being torched in the incineration chambers. So they could have done something, and they should have done something. Perhaps as individuals, there was very little that they could do, and that's part of the problem. They saw themselves only as individuals. But you see, we need to be united. So some of them did unite, and they organized attempts to have Hitler assassinated. So it wasn't just Hitler, but it was the ruling party also. I mean, yes, of course, Hitler is the primary individual to blame, but they wanted to assassinate Hitler, and they made many attempts on his life, and kind of miraculously, he escaped each time. And there seems to be evidence that Hitler was involved in the occult, in Satanism, and that he had kind of special charismatic gifts from Satan or evil spirits that made him an influential speaker, but also that he was shielded or protected from some of these assassination attempts on his life. And as you probably know, he ended up committing suicide. I mean, it's not something that was officially verified, but I think that's the story that we've been told. And that's what happens when you dabble in Satanism. When you want to get ahead in the world, yeah, Satan will help you, but eventually he drags you down, and your life is miserable, and it's not good. So yes, there were individuals who banded together, who made a united effort to oppose some of what was happening. If there were more individuals involved, maybe they could have opposed Hitler much sooner. We don't know. Same as with people who were, fighting against Hitler. Why should somebody enlist in war? Or in other words, the more people you have signed up, well, the greater force you have to fight against these evils in society, not just in your own country, but even in other countries. So yes, we need to do what we can, and every individual is important. The more people we have united fighting against evil, the better. So let me just conclude by quoting Edmund Burke again. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. Thank you so much for your question, and may God bless you all.